this is going to be a video on my miscarriage story, and I never thought that I would be making this video, but these things happen, and I'm going to try really hard to stay calm and not get too upset so that you can understand me, and so that I can get, my story out there of what happened, and maybe, if I can help one person, that would definitely make it worthwhile. It's going to be quite hard, I think, to make this video. I might have to stop and start a few times, but I don't really want to have to edit it too much, so I'm just going to sort of say whatever comes to my mind and just tell you my story in whatever order I can get it out in. I have written down some things just because I know that I will probably veer off topic a bit, so just so that I can know what some points I definitely wanted to say. So I'm going to start at the beginning. We decided we wanted to start trying to conceive a couple of months ago. So we had, been not trying, but trying, if you know what I mean, for a while. But we decided really wanted to sort of dedicate to trying, and you know what I mean. So December, I did actually have a chemical pregnancy, but I'm not going to go into that now. But anyway, January 3rd, I had my period, and my cycles haven't been regular since having April. They have been irregular. Some months they're short, some months they're a little bit longer. They're not, huge gaps or huge differences. Like it might be, sometimes it's, 27-day cycle, and the next month might be 32-day cycle, so it's slightly not right. Before having April, it wasn't a pill, so I hadn't really had a chance to make sure my cycles are regular or anything like that. So anyway, yeah, I had my last period on 3rd of January this year, and we found out that we were pregnant on the 31st of January, and that was, I think, 4 days before my period was due. And I got a positive, and it was a faint line, but it was definitely a line, and a line is positive, second line is positive. And I decided that because we'd had the chemical pregnancy in December, that we didn't want, I was extremely excited, we were so happy and everything, but we wanted to make sure we kept testing until my period was due to make sure everything was okay. So, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So it was Friday, I think it was Friday morning, Friday the 31st of January, just took a test, and that was positive, and then I tested again on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, so I did 4 tests altogether, and every test came back positive, and by Monday it was an extremely dark line, so definitely knew that we were pregnant. And so we were so excited, because the chemical pregnancy was quite stressful, how it all happened and played out. And we started to get really a bit sort of, I don't know, sort of like a bit of a wake-up call, that, hey, things can happen, and it's not just as easy as, we're going to try for a baby and we're going to get pregnant, and definitely, I know a lot of people go through a lot worse than what we have, but having a little taste of, what it's like, and what, just a little taste of what some people go through, and I just really feel for them. So anyway, went to see my GP on the Tuesday, so I'd had 4 positive tests, and she said, look, 4 out of 4, and they all came back positive. You're definitely pregnant. She said, we'll do blood straight away. And she said that she would write me a referral for my obstetrician, because I needed a new referral, because my last referral, when I had April for that obstetrician, it's only valid for a year. So anyway, so she wrote me the referral, and she did all my bloods and everything. My bloods came back positive, like a definite positive that I was pregnant. So I can't remember exactly what the HCG levels were, sorry, but definitely positive. And so I called my obstetrician's office, and they don't normally do appointments till about 8 weeks. The only reason I had an appointment earlier than that with April was because we had a lot of sort of worrying things happen, like I'd had an anxiety attack and went to hospital and all this, and that's how we actually found out I was pregnant. It's a long story, but anyway, they were worried it was a molar pregnancy with April, so because of that we had to have an early scan and an early obstetrician appointment and all that to check that everything was okay. And luckily, you know, it turned out everything was okay, and now we're so lucky and blessed to have April. And I would not, yeah, just so lucky to have April. Anyway, sorry. So anyway, you know, you don't normally have your appointment till 8 weeks with my obstetrician. So, you know, by that stage I was only just over 4 weeks, so I knew there was a 4-week wait. So it's a long wait, like especially when with April we had early scans, early ultrasound scans. I mean, you know, early obstetrician appointments from 5 weeks. So we always had that reassurance the whole way through. And I think there's probably pros and cons to having an early scan and early appointments. I think, you know, because sometimes you can't detect things, but we were just really lucky we could. And yeah, anyway. So it was a 4-week wait, so that was a really long time compared to what we were used to, especially from our last pregnancy, you know, which was with April, if we don't include the chemical pregnancy. So everything was going along really well. I started having symptoms at about 5 weeks of just having nausea, I was having headaches, and feeling really, really tired, and just, you know, I just felt pregnant. I always had a really strong sense of smell as well, and I had lots of this is really a bit TMI, but I had lots of phlegm, and that was a symptom I had with April, and so I just knew that that meant, you know, that I was pregnant. Anyway, so I had, you know, started having quite a lot of symptoms. And my nipples and my breasts were so sore straight away from 5 weeks, and I kept looking at them in the mirror, because they just kept looking like they were getting like bigger by the day. They were just huge and swollen and just really, I don't know, just huge. So I was having all the symptoms, and then at about, I think I was 6 weeks, I started having some lower abdominal pain on my right, and it was weird. Like, it was a dull pain. It wasn't a cramp or anything, but it sort of come and go, and it only really in total probably lasted for about 3 or 4 days, but it wasn't ongoing, like the whole time, 3 or 4 days straight. It, you know, would come and go sort of fleetingly. But I still just thought, you know, I'm not seeing my obstetrician still for another 2 weeks. I just wanted to have that reassurance. I kept wanting to have that reassurance. I think because I'd gone through the chemical pregnancy, I kept just having a little bit of doubt in the back of my mind, and I know that's not a really good thing, but I just had this feeling, you know, in the back of my mind and my instinct. So I just wanted to go and check that everything was alright. So we went to see my GP, and I was 7 weeks, and she said, you know, but that's, you know, I was 6 weeks and I had the pain, and by the time I get in, it was 7 weeks. So I went to see her at 7 weeks, and she said, look, you know, it's quite common. People can have, you know, lower abdominal pain or even cramps in early pregnancy. But she said, you know, if you need some reassurance that it's going to make you feel better just knowing that everything's okay, would you like to have an early scan, as in like prior to my obstetrician appointment? So Bill and I decided we definitely wanted to do that just to make sure everything was okay. And yeah, I mean, thinking back, I still just had this feeling that, and it sounds really bad to say this, but I just had this feeling that everything, it was too good to be true. It was just all going along so swimmingly and so fine and everything. Yeah, that I just had this feeling that it was too good to be true, and yeah, so I hate saying that, but that's how I felt. Anyway, so we couldn't get in for an ultrasound for a a couple of days. I think I was 7 weeks and 2 days or something like that. And so, you know, we were obviously expecting maybe to hear a heartbeat at the ultrasound, you know, and just have some reassurance that everything's okay, and especially because of the low abdominal pain. So I went in for the appointment, and Bill came with me, and I'm so glad he came with me because I don't think I would have been able to go through that appointment without him. So I went to the appointment, and it's the same place we had most of my scans for my pregnancy with April, because we had a bit of, you know, a scare early on. We're having extra scans on top of scans at my obstetrician's office. So we had been there before, you know, and the last we went there, we had an amazing ultrasound technician, and she was really experienced, very thorough. She just was amazing, and we loved her, and we sort of were hoping she'd be there. And we thought it was a good place, that she would go back there. So went back there to have this early scan. So it's about 7 weeks and 2 days. Went to have the scan, and as soon as we walked in with it was another ultrasound technician, I just felt like she was really sort of nervous, and she was a bit anxious. It's like she wasn't very sure of what she was doing, and she just seemed really inexperienced to me, and Bill felt exactly the same. Anyway, so I lied down, and she did do an ultrasound on my tummy, and she said, "Oh, you've got a really, really full bladder." And I said, "Yeah," because I had been quite thirsty and drinking a lot of water, just because I knew that was, you know, healthy for the baby and everything. And she said, "Okay." She said, "I can't really see too much, so I'll get you to go and empty your bladder." So I was a bit like, but I thought, you know, well, last time, you know, when I was pregnant with April, the same sort of thing happened on the first appointment, so I had to go and empty my bladder, because I think sometimes I drink too much water than what you're actually supposed to. Anyway, so I went to empty my bladder, but in the meantime, while I went to the toilet, she called in another doctor. And I've since researched a bit, that when they call in a second doctor, normally it's because they think something's wrong, or they're not too sure of what they're seeing on the ultrasound. So anyway, I came back in, and Bill was still in the room, while I'd gone to the bathroom, and there was a new doctor there, and she was, the ultrasound technician introduced the new doctor, and the new doctor was really quite dry personality, very blunt, and just, no friendliness whatsoever. Didn't have a very good feeling about her. So continued with the ultrasound, and they said, "Look, I think we're going to do an internal ultrasound." So while they were getting ready to do that, they asked, you know, "How are your cycles regular?" And I said, "No, since I had my first child, they've been irregular. Some months they're short, a little bit shorter, and some months are a little bit longer. But give or you know, and then I might have some months where they're the same length every month. So it just depends." And I wanted to be completely honest, because I knew that giving them the most information was going to give us the most answers, if that makes sense, but it didn't really end up working out that way. But anyway, that was my thinking. So, you know, made sure I told them everything, and made sure it was clear that I'd had a previous pregnancy as well, because I do feel that sometimes going to see doctors and talking about, you know, pregnancy and stuff like that, they treat you differently when you're younger, especially in Australia. They sort of treat you like you don't know anything, and you're so young, why do you need to get pregnant now, and all this sort of stuff. It's like, well, I actually have had a child already, and I am a mum, and, you know, she's 21 months old. So anyway, so I got ready to do the internal ultrasound. They started doing the internal ultrasound, and all they could see was the gestational sac and the yolk sac. They couldn't see anything, and I knew something wasn't right, because they were both just silent, the doctor and the ultrasound technician. They were just silent. And Bill, I remember looking at Bill, and Bill was just looking up at the screen. They had another screen separate, and I was just lying there thinking, come on, say something, say something. Any minute now they're going to say something, and, you know, I need to find something. But they didn't. They saw a yolk sac and a gestational sac, and they just said to me, "Look, you know," the doctor said, "You know, because your cycles are irregular, it could just be that you've got your dates wrong and you're not as far along as you think." And I sort of was like, okay. And she said, so it could mean it's just too early to see anything and to, you know, check and confirm that everything's in the right place, which so that definitely is a gestational sac and a yolk sac. So, you know, it's looking okay at this point, but it's looking like you're only about 5 weeks, 5 days. And I was like, okay, it's strange. And I said, but okay, so I said, what does that mean? I said, if my last period, you know, was the beginning of January, like instead of January, surely I'd be a lot further along than 5 weeks, 5 days, because by this stage it was like the end of February, you know. And she just said that she actually said, quote, and this, I am so upset by this, Bill was furious. She actually said it could just not be a goer. That's how she put it to me, and very blunt. And that's what she said, and I just was in shock, because I just was not expecting that. I mean, I didn't have a good feeling all along, but I was not expecting that and her to say it like that, and just the whole situation just weren't expecting. And we'd been so excited about the ultrasound because we thought, okay, we just checked everything's fine, our first ultrasound, you know, after this we can, you know, we told our parents, but we're going to tell our siblings after that, and, you know, so excited. And it just was, it still was a complete shock, even though I'd had that an odd feeling, you know. And she said, you know, we want to wait 2 weeks. 2 weeks will let us see the most, you know, most growth, if, you know, if it is viable. And you know, in between now and then you can see your obstetrician if you want, and then if you want to cancel your second ultrasound with us, then that's fine, to see that later. And that's literally pretty much all she said. So, and then walked out. Before Bill and I were sort of still in shock and still hadn't really had a chance to process everything, thinking like, what does that mean, what's going on, what do we do? So we just sort of lying there and said, oh, you know, we'll let you get yourself, you know, cleaned up and, you know, dressed and everything, ready to come back out, sort of thing. And we were just sort of a bit in shock, and Bill was really silent, and I was just really upset. I was trying really hard to hold in my tears, but I just knew, you know. And so we walked outside and just started really crying, and got to the car and I said to Bill, I'm just so worried, Bill, you know, I can't stop thinking about everything, and, you know, I just want to know, you know, why, you know. And Bill was like, no, Michaela, it's probably just our date's wrong, it's going to be fine, you know. And I said, but, you know, I just have this feeling that something's, you know, not right. And so I called my obstetrician's office straight away, and they said, oh, make sure that the ultrasound clinic forward their sort of report and results and everything to us. So I made sure of that, and she said, I'll get Helen, which is my obstetrician, to call you when she's had a chance to look over the results and report, and call you to work out what to do from here. Because I was really, really anxious, and I just wanted to see my obstetrician, you know. My obstetrician is fantastic. She knows my family really well. She delivered one of my sisters and my brother, and so she has, you know, she has a connection with my family, and she was, you know, fantastic, amazing, wonderful. With my pregnancy with April, so I just wanted to see her, because she just has this way of, you know, I am the type of person that I do worry a lot about things, and I don't know, just always, you know, worry about things, and she just has this way of, you know, making me not worry, making me relax. And she always says, you know, don't worry unless you have to. And I don't know, just, yeah, our personalities just went well together. Anyway, so we didn't hear from her that day, so that was a Tuesday. No, it wasn't a Tuesday, I can't remember what day it was. We didn't hear from her for 2 days. That was really hard, those 2 days. Just waiting to hear from her was the first hurdle, you know. I just felt like this whole pregnancy was all about waiting, just waiting for an appointment, then waiting for, you know, to hear results from this, then waiting to hear from this person. And it made it really hard, because, you know, just the waiting, it just felt like we're waiting so much all the time, you know. I was just watching the clock, and like hour by hour, you know. Anyway, she called us a couple of days later. she called us a couple of days later, and she just said that she'd read the results, and she said, it doesn't necessarily mean anything yet, and she still wanted to wait till our 8-week appointment. So that was, by that stage, it was only, I think, 4 days away. And I was a bit like, okay. I wasn't too happy about that, because we here in Perth, we had a long weekend in that time, and I was thinking just to wait the whole long weekend. Normally I love long weekends. I spend, get to spend so much time with Bill and April, just like as a family. And we're planning to go down south to Margaret River, where Bill's parents live, to visit them for the long weekend. And I just knew that, like, just the waiting, and I was so anxious all the time and stressed, and I just felt so stressed, and I felt really down and just crying all the time. I was worried about waiting that long. But she said if we waited till then, we would be able to see. It would have been a week since I'd had that ultrasound, and she said then we would be able to see the most growth, if there was some. We'd be able to see the most difference, and then it would show that whether everything was alright or everything was not alright, essentially. So accepted that, and I believe everything she's done for us this pregnancy, and for our pregnancy with April, she always has our best interests at heart, and she really cares about her patients. So I was, I knew that, I just wanted to listen to her and do what she said, so we did.